Hi, Ashley here, and welcome to my messy life. If you're new here, hi, my name's Ashley. I'm a stay-at-home mom of 5, a wife, and a senior at a university in Florida studying criminology. My channel's kind of a mixed bag. I've got lots of different content on here, cooking videos, musical performances, true crime, story times, product reviews, just to name a few. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel, and thank you so much for coming back. It means a lot. Without further ado, let's get into today's video. Tonight for my Saturday night true crime video, we are going to be talking about the death penalty. I'm going to be talking about a few different facts about the death penalty that you may or may not have heard before in the past, in the present, and in the future. At the end of this video, I will talk about a few points to ponder regarding the topic that we'll be covering today, as well as provide you with the names of a couple of different documentaries if you would like to look into anything that I've talked about in the video further. This is a picture of the textbook that I'll be using as a resource in a lot of the video. It's called Death Quest. It's the 4th edition, and it's from my death penalty class that I took back in 2015. For the first portion of this past, present, future death penalty video, let's start with the past. I'm going to talk to you about the first legal execution in the United States, and that was the execution of Captain George Kendall. He was a counselor for the Virginia colony. He was executed in 1608 for being a spy for Spain. As the history of the U.S. progressed, different colonies had different death penalty eligible crimes. One of the most extreme colonies as far as death penalty eligible crimes was concerned was the Puritan colony of Massachusetts Bay. The list of death penalty eligible crimes in this colony included idolatry, witchcraft, blasphemy, murder, manslaughter, poisoning, bestiality, adultery, false witness in a capital trial, and conspiracy and rebellion. On the other end of the spectrum was the colony of South Jersey. They had no death penalty until the year of 1691, and they were established in 1646. And their list of death penalty eligible crimes included murder and treason. Do you oppose capital punishment? If the answer is yes, you are in good company with some of our founding fathers. Since the beginning of the history of the death penalty or capital punishment in the United States, there have always been those who did not support the death penalty, otherwise known as death penalty abolitionists or capital punishment abolitionists. One of the first was Dr. Benjamin Rush. He was a physician and a signer of the Declaration of Independence. Other prominent death penalty abolitionists of early American history were Benjamin Franklin, William Bradford, James Madison, DeWitt Clinton, and Thomas Jefferson. These death penalty abolitionists believed that the death penalty was not a deterrent, and they believed that the death penalty might actually have counter-deterrent effects, which is still being studied today. Did you know that the first state to accept lethal injection as a form of execution was Oklahoma? The legislation was passed on May 11th of 1977 in Oklahoma to replace electrocution with lethal injection. In addition to the concerns of finding a more humane, publicly acceptable way to carry out an execution, cost was a huge factor in their decision to make this change. At the time, their electric chair had not been used since the year 1966, and they were concerned about it being too expensive to return their current electric chair to good working order. The cost to repair the chair would have been $62,000. They briefly considered using a gas chamber until they found out that the cost of the gas chamber was $300,000. At the time, lethal injection was projected to cost approximately $15 per execution and seemed to be a far more favorable, fiscally conservative option. At the time of the decision, there was also discussion of the effect that the other execution methods would have on the ability to donate the inmate's organs for transplants. Lethal injection would allow all of the inmates' organs to be donated for transplant, while other execution methods would not allow for the same use of the inmates' organs. Let's move on to the present. In many death penalty states, they do not calculate the concentration of thiopental based on the inmate's weight. For example, in Virginia, they inject 2 grams regardless of the inmate's weight, while in Florida and California, they use 5 grams. And currently in California, they're not using anything because there's a moratorium on all executions. But when they were, that's how much they were using. I got this information on page 141 of my Death Quest textbook. There have been anesthesiologists who have come forward and made the argument that not calculating the weight of the prisoner to be executed could lead to them suffering a very painful death, despite their serene appearance due to the paralytic that they are given. Just as with any other medication, the anesthesia given to a prisoner to knock them out and make them unconscious would vary depending on the prisoner's weight. This is a copy of the death penalty map. The ones in green are no death penalty, the states that are shaded in red are death penalty states, and the ones in yellow currently have a governor-ordered moratorium on executions. As it stands now, 24 states are allowing for execution, 23 have abolished execution or capital punishment, and 3 states have that moratorium that's been ordered by the governor that I was just talking about. Those 3 states are California, Oregon, and Pennsylvania. In 2015, our old friend Oklahoma, who was the first state to approve of lethal injection as a form of execution, is now the first state to approve of nitrogen hypoxia as an alternative form of execution. While most of the 24 states that still have capital punishment in the United States use lethal injection as their main form of execution, some states still allow for electrocution, hanging, or even firing squad as options. Florida and Kentucky allow for electrocution as an alternative method. In Kentucky, it's only if the person was convicted before they moved to lethal injection as an alternative. South Carolina allows for lethal injection, firing squad, or electrocution. According to the Methods of Execution chapter in Death Quest 4th edition by Robert M. Baum, future methods of execution may include things like the prisoner dying by inhaling carbon monoxide from a mask in a tank. It is noted that this was the preferred method of euthanasia that expert Dr. Jack Kevorkian used in helping with assisted suicide. A criminal justice futurist, Gene Stevens, predicts that executions could occur one day by using ultrasound, which would literally dematerialize the condemned inmate. This could also cut on costs of disposing the body. The nitrogen hypoxia method of execution that I referred to earlier that was approved by Oklahoma was also approved in 2018 in Alabama. This alternative method of execution has not been used on a human being as of 2022, but will very likely be used in the near future. September 15th of this year, they were supposed to use this method to execute an inmate named Alan Eugene Miller, who was put on death row in 1999. During my death penalty course, they were just starting to talk about this as a possible future method of execution back in 2014. In 2015, as I stated earlier in this video, Oklahoma was the first state to approve the nitrogen hypoxia method of execution. The main issue that they're running into in Alabama is that they do not have any protocols or procedures set up for this particular method of execution. According to some articles I read, they plan on putting these protocols and procedures in place very soon to get this man back on the death watch where he belongs. Nobody knows whether or not it hurts to die of nitrogen hypoxia. However, it is hypothesized that it's a painless death and it's a pretty quick death, between 4 and 5 minutes. This makes it a very attractive option to inmates who might have a choice in an alternative execution method. And in Alabama, many inmates are choosing this as their alternative method of execution now that it's available. It's also an attractive option to lawmakers who are trying to pretty up the death penalty to keep it in play. Families of victims don't really like this option because they feel like the death should not be painless, which I can understand. No matter where you stand on the death penalty issue, you can definitely understand the pain of the victims' families. Love it or hate it, the death penalty is probably here to stay for a while. In making this video, it was really difficult for me not to go into great detail about a lot of the shortages that the states are experiencing and the things that they're having to do to experiment with lethal injection because they don't have the medications that they need to perform the lethal injection the way that they're used to. I could probably do an entire series on the death penalty. It's just such a broad topic, and I could talk about it forever. If you'd like to learn more about this subject, check out some of these documentaries. There's Death Row, The Final 24 Hours documentary. This is available to watch on YouTube. There's also a movie called Pierrepont, which is not in a documentary form, but it's still very informative and gives you a really good idea of some of the cutting edge things that they were doing in Britain, specifically Pierrepont himself, and making death by execution a more humane experience. Finally, another good one is The Death Penalty, Capital Punishment. It's a BBC documentary. I will link both of the documentaries that are available on YouTube in the description box. If you made it through to the end, thanks for watching, especially because my voice has gotten a little gravelly towards the end. Didn't have a voice yesterday. So thank you so much for watching, and until the next video, stay happy, stay healthy, stay kind, and live your best life.